Since its release, Am I Racist has held the #1 spot on DailyWire Plus, and the only way to watch it is with the DailyWire Plus membership. Right now, get 47% off with code Trump. Plus, we'll throw in a free Leftist Tears tumbler today only. Look at that delicious tumbler. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Trump to join now. President Trump returned to the White House yesterday, which just shows you what a thoughtful guy Trump is. With all that's going on, he took time out of his busy schedule to sit down and chat with one of his voters, and in the Oval Office, no less. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. The libs think that they have President Trump's Secretary of Defense nominee on the ropes, Pete Hegseth. They've got all sorts of gotcha clips, and we have them too. The strange thing about their gotcha clips, though, is that they make him seem like an even better nominee for Secretary of Defense. We have a lot of other picks, too. President Trump's AG pick is causing left-wing heads to explode. We'll get to all of that. First, I want to tell you about Leaf Home. Go to leaffilter.com/Knowles. You know there's something magical about this time of year. The crisp air, the changing colors, it's the kind of beauty that reminds you why home ownership is part of the American dream. You know what's not magical? Standing on a ladder cleaning leaves out of your gutter. Whether you've spent countless weekends unclogging gutters or you're like me and barely know what your gutters look like up close, and you prefer to keep it that way, it is time for a permanent solution you can trust. Some home maintenance tasks are better left to professionals who know what they're doing. Gutters might seem simple, but when they're not properly maintained, they can lead to expensive water damage, foundation issues, and rotting siding. It's like they say, do it right the first time or pay twice. That is why I trust Leaf Filter. Their patented technology keeps everything out except water. No holes, no gaps, just a perfectly engineered system that protects your entire home. With over 1 million homeowners trusting Leaf Filter, you know you are in good hands. Do not miss out on your last chance of the year to save up to 35% off when you protect your gutters with a Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system. Schedule your free inspection at leaffilter.com/Knowles. That is our lowest price of the year, up to 35% off at leaffilter.com/Knowles. See representative for warranty details. A lot of people are joking, and myself included, about how President Trump went to the White House to meet with one of his voters, that voter being Joe Biden. Ha, 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 ha. But when you look at the interaction between the two men, one begins to seriously wonder whether or not Joe Biden actually did vote for Trump. One gets the impression, just from the interaction between the two, that Joe Biden was real happy to see Trump coming back to the White House.
Well, Mr. President-elect and former President,
thank you,
Donald, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
good.
Welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Joe.
You're welcome.
You're welcome for it. Headline: Joe Biden warmly greets Hitler at the White House. Didn't Joe Biden launch his presidential campaign on how Donald Trump called Nazis fine people? Then he launched his reelect on how Trump poses an existential threat to our democracy. Democracy's on the ballot. Trump takes his inspiration from Hitler. He's Hitler 2.0. But there he's all smiles. Welcome back, Donald. Welcome back. Welcome back, Donald. You're welcome. This is going to be a smooth transition, Mr. Hitler. Huh. Kind of makes you, it makes you come to one of two conclusions. Either Joe Biden is a Nazi, either Joe Biden just loves Hitler, or he was lying when he called Trump Hitler. And Trump's not really Hitler, and Trump's not really a threat to democracy, and it's really okay. And to take it one step further, given what took place in the 2024 campaign, you begin to wonder if after Kamala Harris led a palace coup to oust Joe Biden from the top of the ticket, you begin to wonder if maybe Joe Biden really softened on the man he once called Hitler. If maybe Joe Biden, maybe Jill Biden voted for Trump. There's a photo, it was going around yesterday, of the three of them outside the White House. Trump all smiles, Joe all smiles, and Jill seems to be smiling with the greatest joy of all. Compare that to Jill Biden running into Kamala the other day. The two of them were sitting next to each other, not even speaking. Stone cold face. On top of that, you know that Jill Biden wore a red outfit to go vote on Election Day. What a president or a first lady wears on Election Day is never an accident. They know that there are going to be a ton of cameras on them. She wore red. She wore the color of the Republican Party to go vote. I am certain, after all that's transpired, I am certain that Jill, at least, voted for Biden. I'm certain, at least, that she voted for Biden. She might have voted for Trump. I suspect that Joe Biden voted for Joe Biden or abstained. I am 100% confident neither of them voted for Kamala Harris. And after what happened yesterday, I would not be surprised if they both voted for Trump. This, ironically, in the election season of surprise after curveball after zig after zag, ironically, this might well prove to be one of the smoothest transitions in American history. Even after one of, if not the hardest fought election fight in American history, because of the civil war within the Democrat Party, because of the perfectly understandable sour grapes that Joe Biden has for being kicked off the top of the ticket. If yesterday is the precedent for what's going to happen over the next 3 months, the Biden White House is going to roll out the red carpet for Donald Trump, apparently their preferred candidate. Amazing. The biggest political comeback ever in American history you see from Donald Trump. And then on top of that, the man goes from being Hitler and the threat to democracy to welcome back, sir. Let us make a smooth transition for you. So President Trump is done after this term, of course. Non-consecutive second term, and Republicans are term limited out. Democrats too. Everyone's been term limited out since the 22nd Amendment. Though Trump, while he was in D.C., he met with House Republicans, and he joked. He said, according to reports, that he would not be running again unless he did such a great job that they were going to have to change the rules. So it's a little joke, ha ha ha. CBS News loses its mind.
Some viewed that as a joke when the president-elect said, I suspect I won't be running again unless you do something else. Of course, Democrats or people that oppose President-elect Trump would be concerned about a comment like that, given that the president-elect has also promised to be a dictator from day one. That would be an extraordinarily difficult thing to do, to try and extend and be able to run for a third or fourth term, to be like an FDR. But he was joking about that, as some believe, up on Capitol Hill today. He was joking, as some believe, but he was telling a joke. It's very super serious because he's going to become a dictator and he's a threat to democracy, and he's going to, some believe, some critics are saying that Trump was not. Lady, take a chill pill. It's okay. Trump's a very funny guy. He makes a lot of jokes. All right. He was joking about the dictator thing. By the way, he didn't say he'd be a dictator from day one. The joke was he would be a dictator on day one. And you just, one day, clear everything out, and then we're good. We go totally back to normal. That was the joke. She didn't even get the joke right. However, joking aside, it is worth pointing out as an historical matter that President Reagan, of blessed memory, campaigned vigorously at the end of his second term and then into his post-presidency before his Alzheimer's diagnosis. He campaigned vigorously to end the two-term limit for president. President Reagan campaigned vigorously to repeal the 22nd Amendment. Reagan, who was of a certain age at the time, he said, few years ago, they passed this 22nd Amendment thing. And it's because he was so aged that he had a relatively recent historical memory of it. But it is relatively recent. The irony, too, when they talk about how Trump and the Republicans are going to make themselves dictators, the reason that the 22nd Amendment was ratified was because Franklin Roosevelt made himself a king. One of the most prominent Democrat presidents ever is the one who ran for term after term after term and died in office, who ignored the precedent set by George Washington. However, Ronald Reagan's argument for repealing the 22nd is that we already have term limits in America. The term limits are called elections. If the voters
want to boot you out, if they want to term limit you, they will. They'll just throw you out of office. This is also how most civilized Western nations act. You think of the UK, a prime minister can serve as prime minister again and again and again until eventually his party or the voters get sick of them and throw him out of office. So there are natural term limits called elections. And if someone's a good president, I don't know. I guess I generally agree with Ronald Reagan on a lot of things. However, Trump himself is just kidding and is obviously setting up potential successors. J.D. Vance, who knows, maybe somebody else. In terms of the appointments, though, let's focus on Congress a little bit because the most controversial appointment yet came out of Congress yesterday. That would be President Trump's attorney general pick, and that would be Matt Gaetz, bomb thrower extraordinaire, absolute terror of the libs, a man whom the libs are actively trying to prosecute for all sorts of charges related to, I don't know, various scandals and this and that. And so the timing of this is perfect because there was supposed to be a House ethics report that came out on Matt Gaetz tomorrow. Matt Gaetz, immediately after receiving the nomination for Attorney General, resigns from Congress. So on the one hand, you have this strategy of saying, forget about it. I'm burning the boats. We are going full steam ahead here to be the AG. If I don't get confirmed by the Senate for AG, then I'm out of politics. Gaetz with a big show of seriousness and confidence here. But also by resigning from Congress, he totally destroys the libs' justification for releasing that ethics report because the Congress no longer would have really any jurisdiction or authority over him as a member. So they'll probably still leak the report. I think actually parts of the report are already leaking. But now it just makes it look like the Democrats are trying to shoot down Trump's AG candidate. So really, really clever politics going on here. But let's take the nomination just in its own right. Is Matt Gaetz qualified to be the Attorney General? We'll get to that in one moment. First, I want to tell you about Preborn. Go to preborn.com/Knowles. The fight for life has never been more crucial. While the libs fight to make abortion easier to access, Preborn Ministries is on the front lines fighting back, fighting for life, fighting for truth, fighting for the most vulnerable among us. It is fascinating how the same people who cry about following the science totally ignore the scientific reality of fetal development. But that's exactly what Preborn's network of clinics reveals through the power of ultrasound technology. When a mother sees her baby's heartbeat, when she witnesses that undeniable proof of life, everything changes. Preborn's clinics are strategically positioned in areas with the highest abortion rates, offering free ultrasounds and welcoming these women with God's love. The results speak for themselves. The majority of mothers choose life when they see their baby. Would you join me in this crucial fight? One ultrasound costs just $28. You give $28 right now, you pay for one ultrasound. $140 sponsors 5 ultrasounds. You could help save multiple lives with a single donation. To donate, dial pound 250 and say keyword baby. That is pound 250 keyword baby, or you can go to preborn.com/Knowles, preborn.com/Knowles. All gifts are tax deductible. Preborn has a 4-star charity rating. I personally support this organization, and I encourage you to as well. I strongly encourage you to. Remember, in this fight for life, every ultrasound gives a baby a fighting chance. Is President Trump's pick for Attorney General, Matt Gaetz, is he qualified? Is he a serious pick? Or is this a total upending of norms and standards? Does this degrade the office of the Attorney General or whatever the Dems are going to say? Well, I guess I would first ask, you ever hear of Sam Brinton? Maybe not, because the media tried to push this story under the rug. Sam Brinton was Joe Biden's pick for nuclear waste czar, a very high-ranking official in the Department of Energy. And Sam Brinton was an open, cross-dressing, sexual fetish indulging, kleptomaniac of expensive women's clothing who was pinched, stealing aforementioned clothing at multiple airports around the United States. He had photos of himself that he posted to the internet, dressed up in women's clothing and weird stiletto heels, dragging men around on leashes, men who were dressed up in leather outfits to resemble dogs. You think that might be a little degrading? If you're going to knock Matt Gaetz for saying he's a little too indulgent or lascivious or something, what about Sam Brinton? You remember that guy? Well, Matt Gaetz, he doesn't have the character for AG. Hold on. What about Sam Brinton? I don't mean to pick on Sam Brinton. Remember Dmitry Daskalakis? That was Biden's monkeypox czar. Dmitry Daskalakis, another one who would take photos of himself in all sorts of weird leather harnesses doing weird sex stuff. But Dmitry had the added eccentricity of having a pentagram, a satanic symbol tattooed on his chest, which he would sometimes cover up with a matching pentagram leather harness. In some ways, a fitting choice for the monkeypox czar, I guess. But in any case, a little bit degrading for a senior administration official, wouldn't you say? How about, let's put the weird sex stuff out for a second. How about just Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense under Joe Biden? Lloyd Austin disappeared for 3 days. He was in the hospital, went in to have some surgery, did not inform the president. We had a Secretary of Defense missing on the job, did not inform the Commander-in-Chief for 3 days. Don't you think that's a little suspect? Doesn't that show poor judgment in a role? I don't know. How about Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris, no qualification whatsoever to run anything. Kamala Harris, put in charge of connecting rural Americans to the internet and of dealing with the border crisis, didn't connect a single American to the internet, and we had the worst border crisis in history. Kamala Harris, basically no record of achievement ever in her whole life. Even her boss, Joe Biden, admitted that she was a DEI hire in those words. You think that was befitting the executive branch of the government? I don't know. Compared with Biden's picks, Matt Gaetz is overqualified. Compared with Biden's picks, Matt Gaetz has shown perfect judgment, virtually, in his personal comportment. Who are the critics here? J.D. Vance had a good bit on this. He said, well, the real problem with Matt Gaetz is that he weaponized the government to attack his political enemies and try to imprison the leaders of the opposition. Oh, wait, that was Merrick Garland. Even Merrick Garland, who supposedly is this, unimpeachable man of high character who was put up by Obama to be put on the Supreme Court. Merrick Garland, however he started that job, he ended his role as AG as a gangster, okay? So please spare me the pearl clutching over Matt Gaetz. Before you accuse Matt Gaetz, Democrats, take a look at yourselves. Now, speaking of Congress, there's a story that somehow has not really gotten very much attention, but it seems like a bombshell story, probably just because everyone is so jubilant from the election, and the libs are so furious from the election, no one's really paid attention to this. But did you know that last Tuesday, Americans elected the first ever trans-identifying member of Congress? This person's name is Tim McBride, though he calls himself Sarah. Sarah McBride, elected from Delaware. This guy was a staffer for Beau Biden in Delaware. Pretty unremarkable, just your run-of-the-mill left-wing activist. And he was a white dude, so that didn't really help him on the left. Now, he came out, quote unquote, as a transgender. And he said, this is probably going to hurt my political career, but I have to be true to myself or whatever. And he embraced the transgender ideology. But of course, the real effect of that was exactly the opposite of what he said. It greatly helped his political career. This guy was going nowhere fast. He was a real middling sort of Democrat staffer. And then when he pretended to be a woman, all of a sudden he was getting speaking engagements. He was being trotted around by left-wing nonprofits. He was on the fast track to political prominence. Now he's in Congress. So my only question with this, I'm not getting into this guy's record. I'm not getting into this guy's platform. He's one member of Congress. He's a freshman member. Who cares? My question, though, is how is the GOP going to deal with this? You now have transgender ideology for the first time ever in Congress, in a member of Congress. This guy, presumably, is going to want to use the women's bathroom. The Republicans control Congress. Are they going to permit this? Or are they going to permit this? You might say, Michael, who cares? It's just one guy. It's no big deal. Maybe just as a courtesy, they'll allow him to use the women's bathroom. Well, hold on. I think it probably is a big deal. I know a fair number of the members of Congress. I know some of the ladies in Congress. I know some of the conservative ladies in Congress. I strongly suspect they will object to being forced to sharing a bathroom with a man. as they well should object to that. Of course. Not even necessarily as a matter of safety, though I suppose that's part of it. Part of the reason that women have their own bathrooms is so that they don't have to be in vulnerable positions next to men. In part, it is for their own safety, but even beyond that, some women just don't want to have to do that. That's why we have men's bathrooms and women's bathrooms in the first place. So for the GOP leadership, are they going to hold the line on this ideology? Are they going to defend their female members? Are they going to say, hey, Buster, you can pretend to be a woman, I guess, and there's not much we can do about it, but we ain't going to let you use the women's bathroom? Or are they going to go squishy and say, this is going to be a big headache. We don't want to make a big deal of this. Fine, we'll just look the other way when you use the women's bathroom. Well, if they do that, they are implicitly accepting all of trans ideology. They are implicitly accepting that a man really can become a woman. They are embracing the transgender ideology. They are gutting some of the most basic principles about human nature. We've said often in recent years that the conservatives have been feckless. They haven't even been able to conserve the women's bathroom. Well, here we have the literal example of this. What is Mike Johnson going to do? What is the GOP leadership going to do here? It's going to seem like a minor thing, but that's what the left has been telling us for years. Oh, it's just a bathroom. Oh, it's just a sports league. Oh, it's just this. Oh, it's just the definition of marriage. Oh, it's just about some tax benefits. Oh, it's just about hospital visitation rights. Oh, it's this little thing. Oh, who cares? Stop making a big deal about it. Stop making a big deal about it. All of a sudden you look up and you've redefined the fundamental political institution and no one can even tell you what a woman is anymore, including a Supreme Court justice with 2 Harvard degrees during her confirmation hearings. This isn't just a trivial matter. The left knows it's not a trivial matter. That's why they spend so much time and energy trying to force these kinds of crazy upheavals upon us, focused in no small part on bathrooms. If I were a female member of Congress, I would object to this. And I think they should object to this. And I think Republican leadership can't prevent this guy from wearing a dress, can't prevent this guy from calling himself Sarah, though if I were a member, I would not refer to him as Sarah, and I would not refer to him as Ms. or Mrs. or anything like that. I'd call him by his name. And his name, by the way, can't be Sarah because Sarah is a girl's name. All right. There's some people who say, well, I won't use the she pronouns, but I will call him Sarah because you can choose your own name. I didn't choose my own name. You didn't choose your own name. No, you don't really get to choose your own name. Liberalism tells you can choose everything about yourself, but no, Sarah's a girl's name. There are some marginal cases like Skylar or whatever, but Sarah's not a marginal case. Sarah's a girl's name. We don't call men Sarah. You can maybe call a boy Sue, but as Johnny Cash tells us, that's not even a good thing to do either. I would hold firm on this, guys. I know for any members who are listening and for staff members who are listening, there is a lot more being smuggled in here than just some from Delaware into a bathroom. Now, speaking of men, you ought to check out Responsible Man. Go to responsibleman.com, use code Knowles for 60% off. Gentlemen, let's talk about something the libs don't want you to have, and that is robust, unapologetic health. While they're busy pushing their soy-infused agenda, I've discovered a way to fortify ourselves against the tide of cultural decay, and that would be Responsible Man vitamins. I know what you're thinking. Michael, aren't all vitamins the same? Not even close. Not even close, man. Responsible Man created the Emerson multivitamin for men who take their duties seriously, not for the participation trophy crowd. This isn't some feel-good supplement designed by coastal elites who think that masculinity is toxic. No, sir. This is a multivitamin packed with 33 key ingredients that support your immune system, sharpen your mind, keep your heart and muscles strong. It's everything a conservative man needs to stand firm in these trying times. Responsible Man is a DailyWire Ventures company, so you know these vitamins are made right here in America. No Chinese knockoffs. I don't want any Chinese vitamins. No outsourcing to countries that resent our values. Just good old American quality, because a strong America needs strong men. Now, I'm not saying that Emerson multivitamin will single-handedly save Western civilization, but it's a step in the right direction. It's about taking responsibility for your health, something we conservatives know is crucial. Right now, you can take advantage of Responsible Man's early access Black Friday sale. Get 60% off your order with a special discount. Use code Knowles to secure this offer. ResponsibleMan.com, code Knowles. Gentlemen, in a world where the libs want to redefine manhood, taking care of your health is a revolutionary act. ResponsibleMan.com, code Knowles. Speaking of women's issues, the Secretary of Defense nominee, Mr. Pete Hegseth, He's in lots of trouble with the liberals. they've found the gotcha clip intended to torpedo his Senate confirmation. It's a clip from an interview he gave to CNN where Pete Hegseth, or it's at least being played on CNN. It's actually probably from an earlier interview. Pete Hegseth thinks that women should not be in combat.
Straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. We've all served with women and they're great. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
Can you believe Pete Hegseth, our future Secretary of Defense, says women shouldn't serve in combat? Can you believe this regressive knuckle dragger? How about remember I was talking yesterday about how it's rather important not to be caught in the lexical prisons of the left when we have this once in a generation, at least, opportunity to reset the relationship between the people and the press, the conservatives and the Republicans and the press. Well, the key to that is making sure that we're using the right language. You know, in my book, Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds, I make the point that whoever controls the language controls the minds, because words don't just color the way we view the world, they actually largely constitute how we view the world. So the way I would look at this issue is I would observe at a really basic level, beyond all the questions of the studies and the statistics and the ambiguities and the blurring of the lines between the men and the women and this, I would look at it and say, seems to me that conservatives oppose violence against women and liberals don't oppose violence against women. And there are multiple examples of this. I don't want to have a country that sends our daughters off to catch bullets from jihadis. I think that's disordered. I think that's wrong. Even if some of our daughters want to go do that, I think that's just a wrong thing to do. I think that's not right. Men should go out and protect women. Men and women are different. Remember, we still believe that as conservatives. Maybe some people on the right don't, but most normal people believe that men and women are different. And one of those differences is that men ought to protect women. And it is wrong for a country to send our daughters out, including maybe through the draft, as many Democrats would like to see, to draft women to go out there to catch bullets from jihadis to protect effeminate, weak, and disgraceful men. I think that's wrong. Another example would be in sports. The left wants girls to be forced to compete against men in sports. And the problem with this is not that we all love the WNBA so much. No one really cares about the WNBA. The problem with this is that it's gravely unjust and that it puts women at risk. There's that story that came out a few years ago of a high school girl playing volleyball, was forced to play against a man. The man spiked the ball at her, gave her a brain injury. The girl will never be the same. She's partially paralyzed. There was the case of the Olympics, where a fighter who would appear by most evidence to have the biological markers of a man was allowed to compete against women. In fact, one of his medical records reportedly leaked and showed that as a matter of chromosomes, he was a man. So he's beating up the women and he's winning the games. I was talking to a gal at a school I was speaking at recently who said, in jiu-jitsu, actually, I liked it, but then they got into the trans thing, and then all the prizes went to the men. The men just kept beating up the women. So the left is for that. The left is for violence against women. Conservatives oppose violence against women. Pete Hegseth opposes violence against women. I think that's the right attitude to have. By the way, everyone had that attitude until into Obama's second term. For those who are a little rusty on their history, women were prohibited from combat roles in the United States military from the founding of our country, before the founding of our country, all the way up till 2013. Not even Obama's first term, Obama's second term, when he really let the radicalism run loose and subjected women to violence. But that's wrong. What was that? That was 11 years ago now. That seems like an error. I think we've made a lot of errors over the last dozen or so years, and part of President Trump's mandate in being elected, especially this time with such a landslide, is to correct some of those errors. And I think Pete Hegseth is a great guy to do it over at the Pentagon. Now, speaking of major positions being filled, we now also have a Senate Majority Leader to succeed Mitch McConnell. The winner is, drumroll please, John Thune. Most people are not going to be all that excited about that pick. John Thune is not the most right-wing warrior, not the most rock-ribbed conservative out there. According to Heritage Action, it gives him a conservative lifetime score of 62%, which is to say that he is ranked with the average Republicans in the U.S. Senate. This was to be expected. There were 3 picks for Senate Majority Leader: John Thune, John Cornyn out of Texas. There was going to be another John Barrasso, but he pulled out a while ago. The other one was Rick Scott. And so a lot of the conservatives were pulling for Rick Scott, but not enough, because the vote basically just came down to Cornyn and Thune won. Okay, I know some conservatives are going to be a little disappointed about that. However, I'm not in any way surprised. Not whatsoever. That position of party leadership in the Senate is always filled by a squishier kind of character. It's never filled by the right-wingers or the rock-ribbed kind of people. And the reason for that is you got to herd cats. It's not quite as bad as being Speaker of the House or Republican leader in the House, but it's rough. You got to herd cats. And there are liberal Republicans, and there are a lot of Chamber of Commerce country club Republicans, and there are a handful of rock-ribbed Republicans. But there ain't that many Ted Cruz's and Mike Lee's in the Senate is the problem. And so Senate leadership usually reflects the members, and the members are kind of squishy. And it's because they get elected by people who vote for them. So, it's the old H.L. Mencken line, a democracy is the theory that the people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. So I'm hopeful. It's not that he's the most liberal Republican. He's just kind of the average Republican. I hope that he will get in line and help to implement the agenda that President Trump has been elected, running ahead of the down ballot races, to implement. I hope, and I'm cautiously optimistic that he will have that message. Now, speaking of the U.S. Senate, the Democrats are trying to steal a Senate seat right now from Republicans. It's not getting a lot of media attention. Democrats are trying to drag out that race. You thought the election was over. It's not. In Pennsylvania right now, the Democrats are trying to steal the Senate seat that was won by Republican Dave McCormick. Michael Whatley, head of the RNC, just pointed this out. He pointed it out last night. He said, Pennsylvania, tonight the RNC is filing 2 new lawsuits in Bucks County and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to stop the counting of illegal ballots. We have won this court battle several times already. Let's be clear. Dave McCormick has won this race. Bob Casey lost, and Democrat officials and lawyers are trying to sow doubt in the Democrat process. Our attorneys will not let this stand. What is going on here? McCormick won. Bob Casey lost. Even Chuck Schumer had to allow Dave McCormick eventually to come to the Senate orientation. It's clear. Bob Casey has lost a lot of his challenges in court. So what are they trying to do? Bob Casey is trying to have ballots that are ineligible to be counted for whatever reason, because they were cast by ineligible voters, because they didn't have proper signatures, because they were sent after the deadline, whatever the reason, he is trying to get any ballot that might have his name on it counted, even if it's an ineligible ballot. And so Whatley, at the head of the RNC, is saying, ain't going to fly. We've won a bunch of times starting on election night in Pennsylvania. We're not going to allow it. However, Republicans should not get complacent here. Republicans should not think that the Democrats have no chance. The Democrats successfully used this strategy to steal a Senate seat from Republicans in Minnesota in 2008. That was the seat that was held by Norm Coleman, the seat that ultimately went to Al Franken, because the Democrats stole it, okay? There's a good piece in U.S. News and World Report that outlines this. There was a good piece in the Journal that at the time, this was all obviously back over 10 years ago now. But just from U.S. News and World Report and the Journal, the day after the election, GOP Senator Norm Coleman had a 725 vote lead. Then the Democrats took 6 months, recount after recount after recount, and ultimately Al Franken won by 312 votes. How did they swing it? How'd they swing it from 725 votes to 312 in the other direction? Well, according to Minnesota Majority, which was a conservative organization, at least 341 convicted felons voted in Minneapolis's Hennepin County, which was the largest county in the state. Another 52 voted illegally in St. Paul's Ramsey County, which is the second largest in the state. The head of Minnesota Majority, Dan McGrath, said that only conclusive matches were included in the group's totals. So there may have been more convicted felons who voted illegally. And the number of felons voting in those two counties alone exceeded Al Franken's margin of victory. So you say, well, we don't know exactly who the felons voted for, but we kind of do, because felons, convicts are much more likely to vote for Democrats, and they're even more likely to vote for Democrats once they get out of prison in the states where they are permitted to vote. In Minnesota at the time, they were not permitted to vote, but they did anyway. And the Democrats, over 6 months of lawfare, were able to steal that seat from Norm Coleman. Don't think they can't do it in Pennsylvania. I think the RNC is doing a very good job. They're on the ground. They're on top of it. But we cannot let our guard down. Democrats will do everything they can to steal that seat. Then you reduce the Republicans' margins from 53 in the Senate to 52 in the Senate. All of a sudden, that makes confirmation a lot harder, because you got some squishy Republicans out there. You got Susan Collins. You got Lisa Murkowski. You got some squishes, okay? Do not let Pennsylvania go. Now, speaking of shady Democrat practices, the Democrats, and actually letting your guard down, the Democrats have let their guard down on one of the reasons that they are so furious about President Trump's promised policy of mass deportation. And the reason is it's going to be more expensive to get their lawn mowed. We'll get to that in one moment. First, though, Am I Racist hit theaters in September and became the #1 grossing documentary of the decade. Then in October, we released it exclusively on DailyWire Plus, where it became our most watched piece of content, still holds the #1 spot. Remember, you can only watch Am I Racist with a DailyWire Plus membership. Right now, we're giving you 47% off new memberships with code TRUMP. Plus, that annual membership comes with a free Leftist Tears tumbler. Today is the last day we can offer a free Leftist Tears tumbler with your membership while supplies last. Do not miss out. This is the time to join. Head over to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code TRUMP for 47% off. Just to review. Join now, 47% off your membership. Watch Am I Racist? Get that free Leftist Tears tumbler today. My favorite comment yesterday is from Rat Boyd, who says, the only norms of the past 50 years that should be reestablished is Norm Macdonald. That's good. It's kind of also funny that I was just talking about Norm Coleman. I guess it would have been good to reestablish him, although he was a pretty liberal Republican senator. So, and he's, it's kind of past anyway. But yeah, Norm Macdonald, I agree. That old chunk of coal, I totally agree. And who was that comment from? You guessed it, Frank Stallone. Speaking of shady Democrat practices, here is a TikTok lib saying the quiet part out loud about the leftist opposition to deportation.
So your lawn maintenance is about to skyrocket because 90% of workers in the lawn maintenance industry, they come from Mexico. And whether they're here legally or not, Stephen Miller, who Trump's going to put in charge of his mass deportation project, is going to deport them. They're also going to deport people who are naturalized citizens. These are jobs that Americans will not do, okay? American families are not letting their young adults work in the lawn maintenance industry. These companies may be owned by Americans, but their employees are from Mexico.
Okay, put aside her second part there for a moment, that Americans don't want to work hard. She might not want to work hard. I know plenty of Americans who want to work hard. Just think about the first part. We had been told for years now that the Democrats supported open borders, supported mass migration, opposed the enforcement of our immigration law because we just have to care for the poor, oppressed dreamers who want a shot at the American dream. We have to give them every opportunity. And that is why it is so important that we trap them in indentured servitude and make them mow our lawns for wages that are lower than any real American would ever accept. That is why, because we love them so much, we care so much about them, that we have to make them quasi-slaves and pay them off the books slave wages to mow our lawn and clean our homes. Because we liberal suburban women, we would never do any work around our house. Our suburban liberal husbands would never purchase a lawnmower. No. That's why we need to trap foreign peasants in cycles of indentured servitude for their own good, because of how much we care about them. Yikes, lady. Whoa. I don't know. I think it's not that hard to mow a lawn. I'm not saying I like doing it. I don't really have much of a lawn, though, so I don't need to worry about it. But you, that's great. You've had a successful life. You got a big yard in your nice suburban enclave. Okay, well, tell your hubby he's going to have to mow the lawn. Or he's going to have to hire people who are here legally, and he's going to have to pay them fair wages. You know, I'm not being cute about this. One of the 4 sins that cries out to God traditionally in Christianity is oppression of the poor, denying the poor their wages. This lady's bragging about it. This lady's exalting denying the poor fair wages as if it were some kind of virtue. But we must be able to effectively steal the wages of foreign peasants. Good grief, lady. No wonder the Democrats are no longer considered the party of the poor, of the working class. You're actively campaigning on slightly reducing the lawn maintenance fees of wealthy people. I don't think so. I don't think that's a good argument. I think plenty of Americans would do that job, and maybe you have to pay them a fair wage, and sorry for you. I guess you're going to have to cut your vacation in St. Martin a little short this year. You're going to have to go for 9 days instead of 11 days. Sorry. My heart breaks for you. Speaking of shaking up the government, President Trump has just made one of the most exciting promises yet, and this is in concert with his DOGE initiative, the Department of Government Efficiency. Trump wants to cut the Department of Education.
And one other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states. We want them to run the education of our children because they'll do a much better job of it. You can't do worse. We spend more money per pupil by 3 times than any other nation. And yet we're absolutely at the bottom. We're one of the worst. So you can't do worse. We're going to end education coming out of Washington, D.C. We're going to close it up, all those buildings all over the place. And you have people that in many cases hate our children. We're going to send it all back to the states. Thank you very much.
Okay, the libs lose their mind. The squishes are a little skeptical. Just another trip down memory lane. Every GOP candidate in my lifetime, just about, has promised to end the Department of Education. Reason is, Department of Education was founded in 1979 by Jimmy Carter, and its purpose was to make Americans better educated and smarter. That hasn't happened. America is now ranked much lower in educational quality than it was when the department was founded. Test scores in America have gone down. The Department of Education has failed at its task. What it has succeeded at doing is forcing fashionable leftist policies on local schools that should rightly be controlling their own affairs. It's good at that. It's not good at teaching the ABCs. It's very good at teaching the LGBs and forcing those curricula on local schools. But it's failed at its mission. So if you give an institution 45 years to achieve something, and it fails to achieve that mission, the reasonable thing to do is to end that institution and maybe try again, or maybe don't. Maybe recognize things were actually better before you even founded it. Every GOP candidate, just about in my lifetime, has promised to end this. What distinguishes Trump from those other GOP candidates is not just that he's radical or something, that he offers something totally different from those candidates. Largely, what distinguishes Trump from the other GOP candidates is that he actually endeavors to keep his promises. You think about moving the embassy in the state of Israel to Jerusalem. Every GOP candidate in my lifetime just about had promised that. It had been official U.S. policy since I was a kid. But most of those GOP candidates never intended to actually do it. They were just lying. Just a little thing you say on the campaign trail. You're not serious about it, though. Trump, his big mistake was he actually kept his promises. That's what so shocked everyone in Washington. So this is a great one. And it is amazing to think. Jimmy Carter is still alive. He's been in hospice now for almost 2 years. Jimmy Carter might live long enough to see the abolition of a federal department that he established. Pretty amazing. I don't have any political point to make about that. It's just kind of a quirk of history. Now, story I have to get to. as the libs lose their minds over the Trump ascension and the beginning of his administration. Rachel Zegler. Do you know her? Rachel Zegler she's the gal who was cast to play Snow White, and she irritated Disney fans because she apparently hates the story and hates love and princes and the relation between the sexes. And she tried to make Snow White really woke. And there was a huge backlash from that. Well, unsurprising, Rachel Zegler has responded to the Trump election by wishing violence on Trump supporters. Here's what she said. It was a post to Instagram. I find myself speechless in the midst of this. Another 4 years of hatred, leaning us toward a world I do not want to live in, leaning us toward a world that will be hard to raise my daughter in, leaning us toward a world that will force her to have a baby she doesn't want. Leaning us toward a world that won't let my daughter kill my grandchild, leaning us toward a world that is fearful. I shouldn't be this shocked, but I am. I'm heartbroken for my friends who awoke with fear. Okay, yada, blah, 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 yeah. Then she goes on to the bottom. I echo Ethel Cain's statement more than anything. May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. What does it mean not to know peace? What is the opposite of peace? What is the absence of peace? It's violence. So another way to phrase with perfect semantic meaning is may Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself know violence. May they be subjected to violence. She opens up the statement by saying, another 4 years of hatred. And then she closes it with, I wish violence on more than half of America. I wish violence on Trump. I wish violence on 1 in 5 black men. I wish violence on roughly half of Hispanics. I wish violence on 40% of women under 30. I wish violence on married women. I wish violence on most of America. Because they're so hateful. Okay, checks out. Thank goodness those people have been ousted from power. Today is Theology Thursday. We will get to that and so much more in the member block. You do not want to miss it. Become a member and use code Knowles, KNWLES, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.